I had a conversation, which was a chance meeting to be fair, in Tamworth with a lady who works for Care First. She was telling me about all the good work that Care First were doing in Birmingham. And I asked the question, cheeky as I am, are we going to ever get that sort of service in Tamworth? And she said, funnily enough, we will be opening a unit in Tamworth. She told me where the unit was going to be, and I was like, oh, right, okay. And she invited myself, and she asked me to get some more partners together, and we took a trip over to the Birmingham units, and we had a full half a day there, seeing what everybody does, going into the different departments and seeing how well it worked. And then obviously from that day on, I was hooked on Care First, so they say. I came up to see the staff that had initially started working here in Tamworth. This was before any of the students came. And it became apparent that a lot of the students that you get here, who are very vulnerable adults, had got concerns about the police, and they see the police as quite scary. And we obviously needed to break down those barriers. And it was really a discussion with myself, Maddie, and obviously Chris as well, to try and work out how we were going to break down those barriers so that vulnerable people within Tamworth felt that they could approach the police if they needed to. And we decided that the best thing to do was to just turn up on spec and introduce myself to some of the students, get to know some of the students, they get to know me, which then means that you've got to sort of break down barriers between yourselves, because they're very careful not to tell too many people too many details, because that's what people are told. You shouldn't speak to strangers. So you need to make sure that you're not a stranger. So then I went back and fed it into all the police officers at Tamworth that that's what they needed to do. So they started coming up and visiting, students started to come to Care First, and obviously different police officers come and use the cafe here, they come and speak to students here. We've got a very good rapport with lots of the students. We see new students, we build up a rapport with those students as well. And I very often can be found up at Care First if I'm on the missing list from work. I had a 3 o'clock in the morning moment when I couldn't sleep. Towards the end of my nan's life, she'd been very vulnerable herself. And we used to have what I used to call the Paddington Bear tag. So it said, name, address, if found, please return to, and who to get hold of. And she had that in her purse up until the day that she died. And I was trying to work out how we could get that involved with the police, because it would have been very helpful when my nan used to go on the missing list and she couldn't remember who she was, where she was from, etc., how we could get back, so we could have some professional involvement, as well as obviously, you know, people phoning up, if you like, to say, can you come and retrieve her? So I came and saw Chris, and I came to see Rob, yourself, and we sat down and had a conversation about this 3 o'clock in the morning moment I'd had, and we discussed around having a card, and we've got a system in Staffordshire Police that we call the Citizen Focus Toolkit, CFT for short. Every case that goes onto that system is, it's got its own identical number, which can be, now we're obviously, it's been running for many, many years, so it can be anything from 5 numbers to 6 numbers, depending on how many people throughout the whole of Staffordshire put cases on. And I said that we could use that and we could attach it to any card, any ID cards that were issued from Care First. Then we had the battle of trying to find funding, and it took many, many, many months, possibly just over 12 months if my memory serves me correct. And eventually you managed to get the funding, and instead of just getting somebody else to do the cards, you had the epiphany to go down the route of actually purchasing the machine so it could be utilised for new students as well, and we weren't going backwards and forwards to one person saying, can you do us some more cards? So I know that the students get involved here as well, which is another thing that they enjoy being involved in. And with that, I have a trigger plan back at the police station, which is uploaded to CFT, and that has the student's name, address, date of birth, contact details for next of kin, any medication that they take, any issues that they may have dealing with everyday life. So they can be anything from autism, Asperger's, mental health, OCD, anything that's going to put them in the vulnerable category for when they're out and about in the street. And the idea behind the card is that you have a little wallet that says Care First on the front of it. And then it says at the top, attention all emergency services. It says, I learn differently and this can make me vulnerable. It's then got the Care First crest on it in partnership with Staffordshire Police. On the back, it says the student's name, and all it says underneath is police CFT number, and then it tells us that we've had one card issued, and then it says that it's issued by yourselves. Because that's attached to the police computer system, if a student was to go missing anywhere in England, Scotland or Wales, possibly Ireland, if they went over to Ireland, they would see the Staffordshire Police crest, they would call 101, call Staffordshire Police, give the CFT number, the control room would put the unique reference number to that student into our police system, and that would bring back everything we need to know in relation to a missing person. And then obviously they can be returned to whomever they need to be returned to, puts people's minds at rest. And because the police work 365 days of the year, 24 hours a day, that system is accessible throughout those days. So it means that that information is always readily accessible. And working with Care First, if there is anything that needs to be amended or updated, the staff here tell me, and that just goes back and it's mended or updated. It has. We've certainly got a student here who walks to and from Care First, so very independent. We've had a couple of different phone calls about this particular student who does have autism and is known to stand and stare. Members of the public have obviously brought that to the police's attention from the description given of the person. We know who it is, and that obviously that information's been relayed back to the people who've called in concerned that this person standing in the middle of the street just standing staring, and they now have no fear of that person. Originally it looked very suspicious, they thought they were casing the house so that they were going to burgle it. That's not the case. The student just has the tendency to zone out sometimes and just will be walking along the street and just suddenly stop and just stand and stare at anything, nothing in particular, just stands and stares. That's the way that they are made up. When they're having a moment and they get very, very upset, some students will lash out. It's been very invaluable in as much as police officers now know things to look out for. So if one of the students is having a moment that's got autism, you don't grab hold of them because it'll be fight or flight. And that can make the situation 1,000 times worse. So it's been a learning curve for us particularly, but it's also been a learning curve for the students to know that they can actually trust us.